Good evening, everyone. Once again, welcome to our second night of the African American Caucus of the Mecklenburg County Democratic Party's CMS at-large candidate forum. We are so happy to have you this evening. We are broadcasting live on our YouTube channel this evening. And we are so happy to have as our moderator this evening, Dedrick Russell. I neglected to introduce myself. My apologies. I am S.Y. Mason Watson, currently serving as first vice president of the African American Caucus for the Mecklenburg County Democratic Party. Our president, Braxton Beekos, could not be with us this evening. He had a prior engagement, and so we are holding down the fort. We are so pleased to have Dedrick Russell introduced by our parliamentarian, William Mitchell.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here with us tonight. Dedrick Russell is currently the executive producer for community content at WTV. He's returned to WTV after spending a year and a half working on the corporate side of great television as a talent acquisition specialist. In that role, Dedrick traveled to several colleges, universities, and conferences looking for future journalists to work at one of Gray's 113 television markets. Dedrick is excited and humbled to return to WTV, tell impactful stories of diverse community in the greater Charlotte area. Dedrick is encouraged WTV in being intentional about connecting with people in various neighborhoods, hearing their voices and promoting positive change for them. Dedrick started his career as a one-man band at WJBWJ TV in Beaufort, South Carolina. He then spent several years in his hometown, Washington, D.C. as a reporter for Channel 8 and WJLA. In 2003, Dedrick first came to WTV Journal Assignment Reporter. He was the education reporter for nearly 15 years. In 2019, WTV assigned Dedrick to start focusing on community content for the station, tracking the lives of young Black boys in Charlotte, economic mobility, race relations, and health. In 2020, Dedrick and the team were nominated for an Emmy for their work they did there, and especially they call Facing Systemic Racism, Community Conversation. Dedrick has a BA from Virginia State University, home of the woo-woo, and an MS in Mass Communication from Berkeley University School of Newhouse. He's also a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity and served on the board of Harvard Center of Charlotte. Ladies and gentlemen, my great friend, Dedrick Russell.
Thank you so much, and good evening, everybody. And thank you for spending time out of your busy schedule to learn more about the candidates, the people who want to represent your child and make things better in your children's schools. Before we go, we want to go over some rules of engagement. I want to let you know that the candidates will have 2 minutes for opening statements, 2 minutes, and everybody sees the timer on there. Everyone sees the timer. All the candidates nod your head if you see that 2 minutes on there. You see the 2 minutes? You see it, Dr. Witherspoon? Okay. Are you showing?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I do see it. I apologize.
Okay. All right, then.
If
good.
you can see, if you can see Yvette, then you should be able to see the timer. Mr. Fountain, can you see it? Okay, perfect.
Good. That will be your time. You'll have 2 minutes for your opening statement. During the question and answer period, you will have 90 seconds to answer the question. And then each candidate will have one rebuttal for the entire evening. One rebuttal for the entire evening. Now, a rebuttal can be used when your name is mentioned and or unfactual information is presented. Definition of a rebuttal for this evening, you can use it when your name is mentioned and or when unfactual information is presented. If you want to rebut, you let us know, and you will have 1 minute, 60 seconds for your rebuttal. After our forum is up, you will have 90 seconds to deliver your closing statement. And we hope that everybody will abide by the time, because we have a lot of questions, a lot of territory we want to get into. Okay. All right. Let's start things off. Alphabetical order. We will start with Mr. Bill Fountain for your opening statement. Good evening, Mr. Fountain.
There we go. Oh, hi, I'm Bill Fountain, obviously running for the school board. Our schools are failing to achieve their primary objective to educate our children. Yes, these are student outcomes. These academic failures undermine our children's future and demoralize them. I'm committed to a holistic 4-point approach that is designed for self-reliance and for the post-high school success. And those are, first is to hold CMS leadership accountable for student performance and transparency. 2 is to invigorate the student, teacher, parent relationship to include parental rights and values. 3, to create an environment that values classical education, the child development process, and age-appropriate learning materials. And number 4 is to respect the code of student conduct, which is going to give us safe and productive classrooms and start retaining some teachers. Why me? I have a proven leadership success as an Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, combat fighter pilot, and defense planner. 2, as a demonstrated teamwork and managerial expertise as a programs and marketing manager in a Fortune 101 company. And lastly, I am a licensed and experienced middle and high school teacher, so I know the firsthand challenges of teaching, of the classroom, of teaching, of school administration, and parental concerns about their children and their what they learn. And for the last 15 years, I focused on helping children as a teacher, volunteer pilot, and going to the CMS school board meetings and speaking at those. So I'm ready to save our schools. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Fountain. Shemaye Haynes.
Yes, good evening, everyone, and good evening, everyone joining us on our YouTube channel. The following is my platform statement. We can achieve positive outcomes and close the achievement gap by making more of a connection between community building, development, and upward mobility to education. To strengthen our school system, we must work together to build a strong ecosystem to support every aspect of a child's educational needs. Our approach to establishing this strong foundation requires evidence-based solutions that are data-driven, people-centered, and informed by the unique needs of each school and the community we provide education to. We must create the right culture to fully carry out the CMS mission, which is to create an innovative, inclusive, student-centered environment that supports the development of independent learners. We believe our students matter most, and we believe every student can achieve. I fully believe that this platform statement is a representation of my candidacy and my campaign. I'm Shemaye Haynes. I ask for your support, and I look forward to all of the questions.
Thank you. Lenore Ship.
Yes, good evening. My entire career has been in education. Over 35 years. It has been rewarding, especially when I see those students and families come back to me and tell me the success that they are experiencing. So I have had an opportunity to see that being here in Charlotte-Mecklenburg. I have been a student, a teacher, a principal, and a parent of a CMS graduate that I'm very proud of because I know what CMS has been able to do. I want us to continue to do that for all children. I bring a unique outlook to the board because of the work I have done as a elementary teacher, K-5, a middle school science teacher, grade 7, 8, and 9. I know what it looks like and it sounds like to close achievement gaps. That's the work, and raise the bar so that every child, not just some, can be successful in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools and their dreams become reality. This work, though, is a lot of work, and we need experience, which I bring. I've had the opportunity to work with the board to bring consensus It takes more than one voice. This work, though, is much needed, and I can work closely with the superintendent. This is my why for saying re-elect me to the school board, because I know what it's going to take. Excellence without exception. And I have the background. I've been a principal, as you know, K-12 work for over 15 years. So there's so much I bring to the work. Academic achievement, safe schools. I know what that looks like, and an orderly environment. I want to continue this work on behalf of every child in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, Black, brown, all of our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Monty Witherspoon.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Monty Witherspoon. I'm a candidate for Charlotte-Mecklenburg School Board at large. I'm running because it is crystal clear to me that our state legislature has abandoned its constitutional obligation to provide a sound basic education to all students. And that directly affects and impacts Black, brown, and other students of low socioeconomic status. I am a native of Charlotte. I am a graduate of Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, a 1998 graduate of Olympic High School. But my greatest achievement is that I'm as a father. I have a son who is enrolled in kindergarten in CMS. And I want the same things for all students that I want for my own child. Great schools, great teachers, safe learning environments, diverse learning environments, so that my child can go into the world and thrive in a rapidly changing world. And as a board member, I will work hard. I will fight to ensure that all students have access to a quality education. I'm asking for your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Witherspoon. Let's get into our questions. The first question, as an at-large board member, tell us specifically your top 3 issues facing our school district, and what are your plans, strategies, and proposals to address them? And please be specific. What are your specific top 3 issues facing our school district, and what are your plans, strategies, and proposals to address them? And we'll start with Shemaya Harris.
Good evening. Rather than frame this in terms of issues, I'd like to offer up solutions. And so one of the, well, I guess we can say issues. One of the issues that parents and the community has often shown frustration around is CMS's size, and how we often have issues that can't be resolved quickly. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to see us move to more of a decentralized structure, which gives more autonomy and accountability to our learning community superintendents. And I can get into that a little bit later. The community schools model is another solution. It's an equity-based model. It's a holistic approach to solving many of the problems that we see in CMS. 2 minutes isn't enough. I'll get into it a little later. We need to increase arts and enrichment. We have to focus on things outside of academics to support our children in a more holistic way. And finally, we need to have discipline interventions that the community can also support the school in. That will take communication, and it will take a well-defined definition of what those interventions are. We focused a lot on discipline policy, but we really haven't focused on what the interventions are and communicating that to the community for support. So sum it up: decentralization of CMS, community schools model, discipline interventions, and arts and enrichment.
Thank you. Lenore Shipp, your top 3 issues facing our school district and your plans to solve them.
Yes, my top 3, number 1 is academic achievement. Our student outcomes focused government work. We know what that means in terms of student outcomes. So the focus must be getting our goals right. We're looking at new goals for 2024 through 2029. We have to get it right with the right goals. Reading, math. We've looked at science, but we're going to look at also graduation rates and what happens when students graduate. So we're very much focused on academic achievement. I am. I know what that looks like and what we need to do there. Safe schools, we have to have safe schools. It's about safe plans, discipline plans, crisis plans, and getting that right. Following the process, every principal, learning community suit, doing what is needed. And finally, equity, diversity, and inclusiveness. Making sure everything we do, we look at equity, we look at diversity, and we look at inclusiveness. Even when we looked at our 30 projects for the bonds, we looked at equity. What is the equity work? Making sure children have what they need in every school across this county, getting it right, you know, from good to great. And many schools aren't good, and we know that. So we want every school to be a good school. That is a goal I want to see before during my next 4 years. If with your votes, I get there. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Witherspoon, your top 3 issues.
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you for the question. I wholeheartedly believe that school systems exist to improve student outcomes. That's why we are here. And so with that in mind, and through that lens, my first priority is student achievement, closing the achievement gap. I believe that the current board has a great framework in the student outcomes focused governance model framework. And I believe that we need folks who can come on board and can sort of be onboarded rapidly so that we can help and assist with carrying out those goals and guardrails that are really emerged as a vision and values of our community. And I think that's so important. Secondly, we have to address the teacher shortage. Which is which is a crisis all across the country, but especially with North Carolina, who's funding education pretty much last out of all the states. And I believe that student outcomes and all that, as well as our teacher shortage, is directly connected to funding and the lack of funding that we receive. And finally, I would like to say also that I believe that we have to address attendance. We need students in their seats in order that they can learn.
Thank you, Dr. Witherspoon. Bill Fountain.
Thank you. I think if you look at what we're talking about, focusing on the student performance or student outcomes, one of the big issues on that, as being as a previous teacher, I know you have to have a conducive learning environment, and that means respecting the code of student conduct. So that would be an issue and something that needs to be done. In other words, this has got to be something that comes top down from the superintendent and is held consistently, executed consistently through all the schools. This is very, very important because that way you're going to be able to keep teachers, because if you have a conducive learning environment, teachers are going to want to stay because they enjoy it. They're there to teach, because I know what I used to do that. And that's going to help reduce part of your things about the teacher shortage and students absentees, because if you have an environment like that, that's going to be very, very important. It's going to, again, increase our student performance by respecting the code of student conduct and consistency. The other thing is to hold leadership accountable. Of course, as the board, we have one person, and that is the superintendent. And like in the business world, like I was, if I did not keep my customer happy and make a profit, my vice president would say, Bill, goodbye. We need to hold our leadership accountable. And that means there are certain actions that we have to do, not like we have done in the past. And as we have mentioned before, is refocus back on the priority.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you. Thank you. Let's get into student achievement. The latest data release shows that 39.2% of Black students in CMS are grade level proficient across key subjects such as reading and math, and 22.6% are college and career ready. They did increase from last year. But when you look at the white students in CMS are 81.1% proficient across key subjects and 65.7% are college and career ready. And when you look at our schools, 59 of CMS schools were ranked or scored a D or F among the state's low performing designation. But the district had 50 schools on that list last year. 9 more schools were added to the list this school year. Talk to me about what's not happening in CMS that we need to change these numbers. And we will start with Lenore Ship.
Right. That's a great question. And we always look at data. It takes data to drive instruction and be research-based about what it's going to take. And yes, we have a lot of work to do. One of the things we've been holding the superintendent accountable for is how do we ensure that we close these gaps? We have tremendous gaps to close. So we've talked about ensuring that resources, we're going to be looking at our budget, that they align with giving schools what they need. When we talk about interventions, MTSS, multiple tier systems of support, when we talk about teachers in the classroom, guest teachers, what is it going to take? So we're looking at all of that. We're very concerned about those schools. We just met with the superintendent to talk about what will we do to help those principals that are in those schools. We will be looking at that. What will each principal need to support from their learning community superintendent to ensure that they have what they need? They're going to be coached if that's needed, and also be able to work with their teachers. So there's a lot of accountability now too. How do we ensure that every school has the resources, the staff, and they're doing the work? What will that look like in the schools? That's what we've been talking about. And I really believe we have the way forward. We have a plan. I've been, just happy to hear that with the superintendent. We just heard she did the 30-day. We just heard the 60-day plan, and it focused on this, what you just asked. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Witherspoon, what needs to be happening in CMS that's not happening to try to improve these test scores?
Absolutely. Well,
oh, wait a minute. Let me let's go back to your 130. Let me make sure you're okay. You can go ahead now, Dr. Witherspoon.
I think if we take a look at the 2018 WestEd report on the recommendations for fulfilling the Leandro, they give us some steps. They give us really a pathway forward, which includes adequate funding. But also, they recommend a system of teacher development and recruitment that ensures that every classroom is supplied with a high quality teacher who has competitive pay, and that every school is resourced with a high quality principal. And also, there are other things along the lines of having equitable funding across the district coming from the state with that really targets at-risk students as well. But finally, is one that costs $0, and I say it all the time, high expectations for our students. If a child walks through the door, and I know this firsthand as a product of CMS, if a student walks through that door and that child is met, that student is met with high expectations, they are expected to excel and to achieve, I think we will see the results regardless of their socioeconomic background. If we truly believe that all students can learn, I think that those are part of the approach.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Witherspoon. Mr. Fountain, what's your solution?
I think picking up on this idea of the high expectations, you're exactly right. That is a very important thing. If you apply that to the thing that's going on now, is we're giving social promotions. So a lot of students are being moved up where they do not understand the content. In other words, as being a former math teacher, if they don't know their fractions, let's say, and they continue on through school, they're going to struggle for the rest of their time. If they're not reading at the proper level at the early ages, that's going to continue to bother them. And so that's part of the thing, is that if you're going to have high expectations, then you got to stop all of this social promotions. That's one. Two is that high expectations address the code of student conduct again. In other words, where you have a conducive learning environment. Teachers and students flourish in that type of an environment. But if you continue to let unruly children rule the classroom, then and have unsafe classes, all of that is just, it creates disturbance and no one learns. And that, to me, that is the essence of all of this right here, is you focus back again on high expectations, stop the social promotions, and get back to an orderly classrooms. Now, some students are not going to want to change their behaviors.
Thank you, Mr. Fountain. Thank you. Shemaya Hayes, what's your solution?
Well, I spoke about it earlier, and that is the community schools model. It is a holistic approach. And one of the things that we need to understand here, that when a school is failing or has a D or F status, that is one indication that something is wrong in the school. Something is not going right. I'm sorry, can you please, because I'm having difficulty.
Yeah. Can you please mute?
I'm trying to mute.
Okay.
Judge McCoy Mitchell. Judge Mitchell, can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Continue.
Okay. So the community schools model is an equity-based, holistic approach. It has evidence-based, it is evidence-based and has
Yeah. It looks like a catapult.
Continue. We got it. Now you're muted.
Okay, here we go again. Can we start my time again? I'm sorry, y'all. I cannot get my thoughts together.
Yes, we can. Definitely.
Thank you.
Hold on.
Okay, the community schools model is an evidence-based model that has built-in equity. It has been known to close the achievement gap in schools where the model is operated to full fidelity. The reason why I believe in this model so greatly, and I believe that this is one solution towards moving the achievement gap, is because it's evidence-based. There are over 15,000 school districts in this country that have taken on this model, and it has a long history of improving the things that we all say we want in CMS. My children were both in Project Lift schools. We entered into Project Lift in around its second year. My son graduated in 2021. My daughter in her first year of school did not learn nearly anything. So when she was going to the second grade, she assessed at a beginning first grader. So I know that the challenges aren't just about teaching or expectations even. It is about what we need to be doing to support our children. And we need something that calls the community into that process. And it should be something that incorporates all the things we've talked about: discipline, high quality teaching, curriculum, wraparound services. The other thing this model does, and my time is up, we'll get into it later.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll stick with academic team. The graduation rate in CMS is 82.6%. 82.6% graduation rate. Can you be specific? If you're elected on the school board, what will you bring to the table to try to increase that graduation rate of 82.6%? And we're going to start with Dr. Witherspoon. Oh, you're muted, sir.
Okay. It goes back to really being focused on student outcomes, right? And also within the framework of student outcomes focused governance, we have to monitor closely how well students are progressing, how proficient they are from one grade to the next, and have that data disaggregated so that we can follow students closely and we can respond rapidly to students who have certain needs. are additional needs. And I think that's very important to monitor the progress of students. But I think that's the heart. But also we really we have to have students in their seats in the classroom so that they can learn. And so I believe that I will be instrumental in helping to monitor the progress of all of our students.
Thank you, Dr. Witherspoon. Bill Fountain, what's your solution to get more kids across the stage to get that high school diploma?
Well, one of the things I want to mention, go back, is if you take a look at that graduation rate, I've been talking to some business people, and the students that are graduating today, they would love to hire, particularly the disadvantaged students, but they have trouble doing their math and they have trouble reading and writing. So I'm not sure what the criteria on this graduation rate is of how well they're doing. Now, going back to that is that I think we can improve the graduation rates if we go back and make sure that the student is prepared to move from one class to the next. In other words, they have learned the proper things, whether it's in reading or whether it's in math or whether it's in science. And that's the way, once you get that process up, then they can start to flourish, or in other words, move up. But if you don't give them a good baseline, and particularly like the third graders, if they're not reading about the third grade, that just creates a wave of problems for the future then. So once you got to get them started into and get them a good baseline, and then they can gradually move up. And this is not an overnight type of a thing, because we're doing too much of the promotions that are going on that are not, most of the students are maybe not be capable of what they're supposed to be doing at that level. So that would be the focus things that I would go on.
Thank you. Shemaya Hayes, what say you?
Okay. Well, I believe that the role of a school board member is more than just a set of policies. And really, it has to extend past just student outcome focused governance. I believe in that framework. I think it's a marvelous framework that the school board has decided to execute. But the reality of it is we need to think about things that are touching students where they are, have more of a focus in terms of what is taking place in these schools that are failing, what is taking place with children that are not graduating on time. What I would like to propose is that we take a hardcore approach at our middle schools and strengthening CTE in middle school, because I believe that would give students more of an opportunity and an incentive to finish high school. We think about CTE currently as a high school issue, but really we need to focus on the middle school level. And that way, if a student is not so strong academically, they can think about a vocation that they'd like to go into and perhaps finish school because they have a vocation and a focus and a reason why. Also strengthening sports in the middle school area. We're a little weak there as a county, arts and enrichment as well. And my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lenore Shipp, what's your answer?
The question, we dropped a little bit this year from 83 down to about 82, as you mentioned. So this is something we were very concerned about, the graduation rate and what it would take. One of our goals had been looking at endorsements, looking at ACT tests, looking at what the requirements are. You know, what students need, first of all, to graduate, and are they on point? What's happening at our high schools to ensure Math 1, which really starts in the middle school, and do they have the math credits, the English credits, the biology credits that they need? So to ensure that we are looking at how teachers are impacting student achievement so that students can get across the finish line, which is graduation rates. And I could talk about this one a lot, but finally, we are looking at counselors, coaching them through, guiding them through. We've talked about 5th through 12th grade, not just starting in high school, but tracking where students are in terms of what they want to do so that they can graduate and be enrolled, enlisted, or employed. That's very important. That graduation means something once they get through. So we're working hard to look at what are the interim goals we'll look at to get them through and to increase our graduation rates, looking at advanced courses in our high school, looking at starting at 5th grade, talking about this, starting in 8th grade, saying, you know, we have SAT, PSAT, ACT. What are we doing to ensure that not only they graduate, but they graduate ready for the future? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Next question from the audience. Do you believe that all students should be taught curriculum in the same manner? Or do you believe learning models should be customized to the student? Do you believe that all students should be taught curriculum in the same manner? Or do you believe learning models should be customized to each student? And if you think it should be customized, do you think that CMS has the resources to support such a model? We're going to start with Mr. Fountain. Talk to me about learning, teaching and learning.
That's a wonderful question, because as a teacher, there was at times I had to do a customized, because some students were not up to the proficiency level. For instance, I taught geometry and math 1 and algebra 1. And if they weren't up into that level, I had to spend time with that child outside of the main classroom, because otherwise I would be compromising the rest of the students in the classroom. So this student like I said, this student would have to stay with all the rest of the classroom, but I would have to do some tutoring and extra work with him, or to help find another student to help this student to get through this one particular area that they had troubles with, let's say. And then the other thing, the curriculum, I found, this is just a case of mine. I had a child, a young boy who was having difficulty in algebra 1. And he had, some behavior problems. But once he was building a shed outside of the school. And once he got involved in that, he figured out the proportions. He figured out fractions, how to cut angles, etc. He did that because he was working with his hands, and it was a different child. So there should be a way, as we talked about, Ms. Haynes talked about the CTE, on other ways that we can help these children, a little bit different avenue that they can flourish.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Fountain. Shemaiah Hayes, if you were a school board, how would you advocate? Should students be taught the same, customized, and will you have the resources to make that happen? Talk to me about that.
Well, I believe a year or two ago, CMS decided that they were going to have one curriculum across the district. And, I had some hesitations about that. But here's my view as of now. I believe we should take a very focused approach on selecting the right curriculum. I'd like to see curriculums be chosen on the learning community level versus the entire district. And given that, I think we need to really utilize interventions for children who are not picking up. In other words, we teach to a standard and we continue to teach to that standard, but we offer interventions for children that are struggling. I believe that with the MTSS that has been, that I hope that we can execute to full fidelity, will assist in some of that. We also need to this is where high expectations come in. We can't offer a solid curriculum and then never teach children to that curriculum. Because what happens is children that can catch on to the material are not taught the material or presented with the material. And so for me, it's a couple of things: selection of curriculum, interventions, and then teaching to high standards.
Thank you. Lenore Shipp, what you have to say about that?
Yes. Curriculum and instruction. First of all, what students should know and be able to do. We have state standards that we're required to teach. We have curriculum that is brought to us by the North Carolina Department of Instruction So we do have what we have to teach, but we have instructional practices that can meet the needs of all children. We picked up the EL curriculum, for example. We get a chance to adopt curriculum and look at our text materials that we'll use. We started with EL curriculum, and now we've moved it across in terms of professional development, so teachers are ready. But we call something called just-in-time teaching. When a child or student is not ready, we're going to meet the needs of every child where they are, but we can also teach them on grade level. So I'm teaching them on 5th grade, and then I'm doing just-in-time teaching. So I'm doing reteaching loops to go back and get this child where they need to be. And it's very important that we do that. Orton Gillingham, we have resources. MTSS is a tiered approach. We look at kids that are on grade level, kids that are not quite on grade level, and how do we work with every child? So there is a process. We are doing that. And it does take resources. It takes staffing. We look at it through equity lens, but we also look at the fact that children come to us at different stages and we meet the needs. That's the job, to meet the needs of every child, no matter how they come to us. But we have to look at equity and resources and how we do it in every school.
Thank you. Dr. Witherspoon, do you think that all students should be taught the same curriculum, or should it be customized? And will the CMS have the resources to make that happen? What would you say?
Well, yeah, we do have a standard curriculum that is dictated by the state, but I do believe wholeheartedly that students learn differently, and there's some different students have different needs, and therefore you need different approaches. There are several things that Ms. Shipp has mentioned very effectively, but also students with who have different needs. You have IEP, you have the MTSS. But these things, to your last question, to the second part of your question, do we have the resources? You have to have significant resources to ensure that you have staff to deploy these programs. So I think that's I think that question is evident, that we definitely need more funding and resources to ensure, like we just said, that so that we have equity and every child is receiving what they need.
Thank you, Dr. Witherspoon. Next question, systemic racism. Do you think that systemic racism plays a part in our education? And if so, as a member of the Board of Education, how can you establish policies that will enhance, inform, and prepare our teachers and administrators to effectively interact with and educate our Black students in a more culturally relevant manner? Let's talk about systemic racism in our school system. Talk to me about that, and talk to me about policies that you would enact or suggest to make sure that our teachers and administrators can educate our Black students in a more culturally relevant manner. We're going to start with Shemaya Haynes. What do you have to say about that?
Well, you know, systemic racism has been in education since the formation of this country. And one of the areas that I'm concerned about is how not only are our schools underfunded and being defunded, but also our parents are not engaging in a way that would support their child's learning. Now, we can speak to, you know, Leandro. I believe we should fully fund Leandro. I believe we need to continue to fight for public education and those dollars. But I also believe that the first place of inequity, I won't use systemic racism as a word, I'll say inequity, is that parents in the community can't engage in schools the way that they need to support their children. And the school doesn't have an infrastructure to support that either. So what we have is children not being able to learn in school, and then parents who are unaware of what the consequences of that are. So I believe we need to create equity in places where we can. Some of those places don't require us to have funding. Some of those places are actually our wherewithal in how we treat the school and its community. And that's a long thing to have to answer in a minute and a half, but I thank you.
Thank you. Lenore Shipp, systemic racism and what do we need to do to make sure that our teachers and administrators can effectively educate our Black students?
Yes. One of the things we've looked at, and just a couple of years ago, we brought in equity and diversity committee. We have an equity committee. And the reason we brought that committee in was a lot of this. We were looking at cultural awareness and talking about staffs being culturally aware. We did professional development to really work with this, to talk about where do we see these areas of racism. We talked about, do we have more teachers of color that's working in our schools? But I think this really starts at the schoolhouse door a lot, to ensure that every school is really aware of how they welcome all children and all families into the school. This is very important, and we talked a lot about that. Is it a welcoming environment? Are we really looking at how staff and teachers treat every child, no matter where they come from? So I think that's important. We talked about having a good parent advocate in the school that works with parents to help them get what they need and feel that they are being welcome, but not only that, their children are learning. And if not, what? I get a lot of calls sometimes about parents feeling like it's some biases or racism going on in the schools when their children are not being served appropriately or their kids are failing. And I can't talk about this all in 1 minute or 90 seconds either.
Thank you. Dr. Witherspoon, talk to me about systemic racism in the classroom and what can be done to make sure that teachers and administrators are taught how to effectively teach Black students.
Well, I'd like to say, first off, that I believe that a majority of our teachers are there because they want to be there and they want to teach students, and they make tremendous sacrifices in order to be in the classroom. I do think, however, that we can increase cultural awareness, cultural sensitivity training, maybe some cultural immersion. But the second part to that I would like to say is that I'm an advocate for creating a pipeline for more Black teachers in the classroom. And that research suggests that all students benefit, of all colors, benefit by being exposed to Black teachers. Not only that, when you speak specifically about Black students, when you have Black teachers in the classroom, students will be less likely Black students will be less likely to be referred to the office for suspension. They'll be more likely to be recommended for an advanced class. And also the chances of graduation and applying to college increase with exposure to one Black teacher.
Thank you. Mr. Fountain, talk to me. Do you think systemic racism happens inside the classrooms? And what say you about having policies to make sure that our teachers and administrators can effectively educate our Black students?
I think one of the things is falling down on this, it causes a lot of these problems, is that we're not putting enough focus on our neighborhood schools. And sometimes like the Title I, because I taught at a Title I school years ago at Marie G. Davis. And I think part of that is that if we need to have an environment that builds up those schools, because now I think we're diverting parents and teachers away from these things going into magnet schools and not focusing on our neighborhood schools to beef them up. Because in that neighborhood, if you get a neighborhood environment where people are coming together there culturally, the students will be able to participate greater into the extracurricular activities after school. They will be with their neighbors. The parents will have a better chance of being involved in that, being they've been bused some other place. And your point was well made about bringing in more Black and Hispanic teachers into the environment. And to do that, you got to have a welcoming environment. And one of that things is that you got to have some sort of discipline in the system respecting the code of student conduct. But I think a lot of this focus is that we're misplacing too much effort. We're missing the boat on not focusing on the neighborhood schools, because I think that's where you get
Right.
a cultural environment there.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fountain. Next question. For some time, the North Carolina legislature has been an obstacle to a quality education for all North Carolina children, from a failure to fully funding public schools to an outright campaign to end public education. If elected as a school board member, what is your plan to overcome this major impediment? And how will you try to get more money from Raleigh to CMS? What's your plan? How can you shake them down? We're going to start with, let's start with Lenore Shipp. How are you going to get more money from
How are we
Raleigh?
gonna shake them down? Huh?
Shake them down.
One of the things that I've done all my life, I've been a public educator in the schools. And so one of the things I've done, I've advocated first for it. I've worked with the legislative agenda we have. I've worked with the Mecklenburg delegation. I've actually been on the front lines with them, rallying, working, asking for public education, pushing it forward. I have looked at the Leandro order. Our attorneys with the schools, we have pushed to say, how do we continue to ask for funding? So I've done nothing short of saying, can you just give us the money, right? So I am a big advocate. I follow all of the cases that we've had, all of the things that we're doing. We got some bills passed. We had 38 bills passed through our work with our legislative agenda. We've got nurses now. We're going to get more nurses because we passed that bill to ensure that they don't have to have a 4-year degree, but they have a nursing degree. I've done a lot of work to continue to push child nutrition, more money for lunches, our retired teachers back into the schools before having to wait 6 months to return. So I'm constantly advocating for that because I know what it's going to take when we talk about public education. Number one, what do our children deserve? They deserve a quality education. And I will continue to advocate that we get the funds to increase teacher pay. I will work closely with the delegation, with Raleigh, and to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Reverend Dr. Witherspoon, how are we going to get more money from Raleigh? How are we going to make it happen?
We're gonna have to shake the tree. And but yeah, as I said, I'm open a statement. This is a constitutional issue. It is mandated by the Constitution that every child receive a sound and basic education. That's baseline. And the result of Leandro has not yet been fulfilled. If you think back to 2022, the state had a $6.2 billion surplus coming out of the pandemic with e-commerce and all of that. They put that money into a rainy day fund. Okay, this is clearly a partisan issue as well, and we just have to name it as it is. But one, how we can approach it is, I think we have to educate the community about what's going on. A lot of folks don't know what's going on. They don't know how school systems are run or funded. Also, we have to build, one of my platform points is to build strong community coalitions. This is going to take a grassroots effort. I was at a meeting last night, heard a presentation about Public Schools Strong, and I'm watching how they are just connecting with other school systems and how this organization just emerging. If we can watch those approaches and we can have a grassroots approach to challenge Raleigh, I think that we may get some and educate the public. I think we may get some leeway.
All right, then. Thank you. Bill Fountain, what's your plan to get more money from Raleigh?
Well, one of the first things, if you look at why Raleigh is probably doing what they're doing, and it's happening throughout the whole United States, it's just not necessarily Raleigh, is that there's a reduction in enrollment within public schools. A lot of that is because people are losing confidence in their school systems, their public school systems. And that's one of the reasons I think Raleigh is shifting things over to more of the school choice type of a thing, to give parents an opportunity to look for something else. I think the way to build back to get more money is to produce. In other words, to have better student outcomes. Because why would someone want to throw money? And the way I think this is what they're thinking is that why throw good money away on a deteriorating system? You want to put, if you could find a way, we need to build this up, and money is not always the solution to these things. I've mentioned several things that I think that are all part of helping that, about the student performance, about the respecting student confidence, or the code of conduct. But a loss of confidence I think is the underpinning that we're seeing, is why you get to this deterioration of the funds. And I think you change that by performing. Like in the business world, if you perform, you're going to get more contracts. It's the same thing that we're facing today.
Thank you, Mr. Fountain. Shemaya Haynes, what's your answer to get more money from Raleigh?
Well, let me just say what I have done prior to even being elected on the board. I have been a member of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Association of Educators affiliate member, and as an affiliate member, and we marched in 2019 to Raleigh. I had been wearing red for Ed every Wednesday for a long time. Sometimes when I can remember now, I still do. Let's face it, Raleigh has been pulling what it's been pulling for a very long time. No one is really going to save our ship anytime soon. Although we can still fight, as Lenora said, supporting the delegation, going to public hearings for Leandro, working with organizations like Public School Strong and the Poor People's Campaign and Hill, North Carolina. All of those things make a difference. But what is happening to our children as we enter into this fight? As of right now, parents are caught in the middle of having high quality schools and vouchers and charter schools. That's not school choice. That's being put in a position to where you have to make a choice about your children or your loyalty to public schools. I'm going to say that the community schools model has been supported by the National Association of Educators and the American Federation of Teachers to offset this thing we have going on with school funding. It's not about the fact that defunding schools is right, but what can we do for ourselves as a community? We're the answer to that question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
One rebuttal, if I may.
You sure can. You will have.
Let
me start your clock at 60 seconds. So
I won't even need 6 seconds, but I just want to point out, because I think it's very dangerous that we don't name the issue in our state, and it is Raleigh. And although funding is not the total solution to the problems, when a state has failed, you're at the bottom in the country for funding public education. It is a problem. It is a crisis, and we have to name that for what it is. And this has been going on. They've not funded appropriately. They've not met with included the inflation. None of that. And this is an intentional effort to undermine and dismantle public education. We have vouchers, all of these names that they call these things. It is an intentional effort to undermine, dismantle public education. And I just wanted to name that.
Thank you, Dr. Witherspoon. Question from the audience. What does it mean to you to provide a student-centered environment that is safe for our students K through 5? What does it mean to you as a board member to provide a student-centered environment that is safe for our students K through 5? What does that look like? Dr. Witherspoon.
Sure. I think the whole focus of the school system is student-centered. My motto for my campaign is student-focused leadership. I'll say this quickly. When I was asked about the bonds the other day, I had to go back, and I was having a conversation with my wife. Sometimes we come home and I debrief about I brief her some of the things I learned. So I went to a presentation about how they were going to build the new schools, the rubric for building new schools, and my son goes to a fairly new school. So there are a lot of things that I learned how well detailed and well thought out these new schools are. And I came home and I told my wife about all of the security measures, all of the everything that was in place to keep students safe, how intentional everything is. And my wife literally bent over and gave out a sigh of relief. And I think every parent should have that same sigh of relief that their children are going to safe schools. Every child should go to school with the confidence that they're going to be safe as much as they can. Nothing's foolproof, but that everything's been well thought out, and that everything has students and staff at their interest.
Thank you, Dr. Witherspoon. Mr. Fountain, what does a student-centered environment that is safe for our students K through 5, what does that look like to you?
Well, students, I guess from the student perspective, is that when it's centered, is that you're focusing on what their outcomes are, and the safety obviously is that issue. And like you're saying, the building the schools to create a safe environment, to have a respect to the code of student conduct is going to provide a safe environment and a conducive learning environment. So I would think that is going to be a major part of that, is the respect to the code of student conduct and focusing on, you do have to address the idea of safety. And that's not only from the internal part, but the external. And I think that's some of the things that they're doing with the schools right now in the way of the building. In fact, I know some folks who are actually do these surveys around the different schools, and there's a different perspectives on how this is, but the entry points and the exit points where there is you're making sure that the right people get into the schools and the wrong people do not get in. So those are all part of that, I think. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fountain. Shemaya Hayes, what does that look like to you, a student-centered environment that is safe for our students K through 5?
Sure. Well, I think it's an all-encompassing thing. I think this speaks to the culture of schools and how we create a setting and a situation and a culture where students are safe. Safety isn't just about physical safety. It is about a feeling of belonging. It's about having trust in the people who are there to teach you and educate you, and also sometimes they even discipline. And so I think that our schools really, we really need to focus on the culture of schools, high quality teaching, safety, discipline interventions, and just ensuring that students feel good about going to school. And feeling good means you do feel safe. I don't want to take up my time in pointing out problems and calling things out. What I'd like to do is to be a candidate who's focused on solutions. It's a risk to say what you will do, because the reality of it is some don't have the confidence that they can do what they feel they say they're going to do. I am a candidate who is about solutions. And so when we speak to restorative justice practices, that is a solution to this problem. And what I'd like to see us move to is more solutions, less about calling out what something is, because I can tell you, I've been out on the ground calling things out for a long time. I'm ready for our kids to move forward. I'm ready for us to have safe schools and a good environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Lenore Ship, what's your answer to that question?
What was the question? Can you repeat all of that?
I sure can. What does it look like to you to provide a student-centered environment that is safe for our students K-5? What are your solutions? What does that look like to you?
Right. When we say student-centered, we say students come first. What does it take for a student to be able to learn in a school environment? Number one, they must feel safe. The social, the emotional, I call it Maslow's. All that you have to do for kids to feel like they belong, they're nurtured, they're cared for, they're protected, and they can then feel good about doing the work. That's student-centered. Making sure parents are involved, the community is involved, so that the school, everyone is a stakeholder in making sure students feel safe, not just the teachers sometimes and the administrators, but everything that happens. But there are plans. We need to make sure we follow crisis plans. That's very important. We follow our safe school plans. So when we need to have lockdowns, we've been trained, and schools have been trained on active shooter training. They've been trained on how to quickly lock down, how to prevent crisis, what to do. We have buildings, as Monty mentioned, that ensure that there's a better sense of safety, cameras in the school, buzzing in, getting out, so many things to ensure students feel safe. But centering that all around the child, so that the child feels like I can learn. I'm in a safe space. I'm in a space where people care about me. They're going to protect me. They're nurturing me, but most importantly, academic. They're going to teach me, and I'm going to come out of maybe a cycle of poverty, if that's the case for some.
Thank you. Thank you. Since we're on safety, this is a yes or no answer. I know that last night the school board went over its guardrails, and I know the guardrail 2 recommendation is safety. The recommendation is that the superintendent shall not allow an unsafe environment in schools, at school-related events, or on transportation. We have seen fights at Friday night football. We've seen pepper spray on school buses. So tell me, yes or no, do you think students are safe in CMS? We'll start with you, Mr. Fountain.
No, I don't think they're safe, because I don't think we're doing enough to protect our children. I mean, we already know we're trying to build for the future. So that means that we're not doing enough right now.
Thank you. Shemaya Hayes.
No.
Okay, thank you. Lenore Ship.
Hard one for me. It's a yes and a no, but I think right now, do they feel that way? I think it's who you ask and how you look at it. But I think it could be a no if you're looking at just those experiences you named. But if we're looking at the everyday, what happens in the classroom and at every school, I don't think every school would say a no. I think this is case by case.
Thank you. Dr. Witherspoon.
As a parent of a CMS child, we have a long way to go and a lot of work to do.
Thank you. Let's talk about book banning. You know, this was the month that the American Library Association marked Banned Books Week. And it stirred up some controversy and some confusion in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. There was an email that went out from the communication department asking principals do not participate in Banned Books Week because the email said that such activities could violate North Carolina's new Parents' Bill of Rights. A few hours later, the school had dismissed, and CMS sent another email to principals saying it's up to them to decide how to handle it, adding that it is not a violation or in any way associated with Parents' Bill of Rights. So my question to you, and we know that some of the books that are being challenged today are books about the LGBTQ community. I want to know that would you be a proponent of banning books in Charlotte-Mecklenburg School District? There's a Banned Books Week where school districts talk about books that have been banned. There was an email that went out to CMS principals saying, do not participate in this Banned Book Week because it violates the Parents' Bill of Rights. Then a few hours later, CMS sent out another email telling them, hey, forget about what I just said, but it is up to the principal to decide, but it is not a violation of the Parents' Bill of Rights. So I want to know as a school board member, what is your take on banning books? And we're going to start with Shamaya Hayes.
You give me all the hard ones first. No, I'm just kidding. That's not a hard one. I'm against banning books. I think parents should have the right to choose what materials their children are exposed to. And that's from, just being a parent for a very long time. As far as this is concerned, to me, this is just a PR flop on CMS's part. They are probably panicking because they're not sure about what's going to cause a stir as far as this issue. Now, what I believe is that before we issue something out to the entire school district, it needs to be something that's well thought out, and it needs to be something that we're going to put our lives on the line for. So in my mind, there are two things. One, it was a mistake on CMS's part to do this. But two, the fact that they reversed it and could admit somewhat that this may not have been well thought out, and it had to be reversed. I think it's one of those things that happens. But no, I'm not for banning books for all children. I think parents should support their children in the best ways they feel necessary in that way. And it was a PR flop on CMS's part, and then a double flop when they had to go and take the stuff back. So.
Thank you. Lenore Ship.
Yes, this was one way. People thought that the Board of Education was involved in this. We were not. This is when you talk about governance and then operationalizing things. This is about the superintendent making these decisions, and also along with the school district. What happened here? Communications thought they were supporting or helping, and it was miscommunication all the way across the board. The superintendent had not gotten involved in that. I think communications thought because it might be a media issue, they needed to jump in right away. Yes, I'm sure Senate Bill 49 was in the fringes thinking about, was that the right thing to do? We did not say we would disagree with whatever principals thought were right to do in terms of book banning week. I do not believe in banning books. As someone who is an avid reader and who has been in the schools working with media specialists about books, there is a process now for parents who are interested in a book being moved or restricted for their child. There's a process with the school media advisory team and then the central media advisory team to look at those books. But book banning, no, I do not approve of that. As someone who is very much into literacy and books. And yes, that was an era. We really talked about how we could ensure that we do better when it comes to communication in that way.
Thank you. Dr. Witherspoon.
I am 100% against book banning. What we need to be talking about is how to get our kids proficient at reading. That's what we need to be talking about, not book banning, but getting our children to read on grade level. As an African American, as a Black man, I would never support any such limitations. As a person with a close family who was transgender, I think that all folks, everyone, should be included, and they should see themselves both in the curriculum and this and have shared space to be respected. As a parent, as any other parent, you have a right to say what your child can and cannot do without limiting the scope and of which another child should be able to experience.
Thank you, Dr. Witherspoon. Mr. Fountain, what say you about book banning?
Well, book banning is a slippery slope. I mean, it's a spiral. You get everybody's different take on things. So no, you don't go down that path. The key thing is the parental rights. The parents, they're the primary educator. They're the one who's loved their children the most, and they're the ones who should decide on what these children read or even look at, or whatever the type of materials. And there's a child development process that we all know that at certain ages, you don't want to start confusing children. And at other ages, they become more mature. So that's a normal process that all parents or grandparents, etc., know, and there are appropriate places for certain materials. So I think that's all the key thing of is that the parents have to opt in on this. This is because there are certain forces that want to throw a bunch of things in front of children that are not appropriate at this time in their child development, and it's counter to what the parents want. So there should not be forcing these things on children and leaving the parents out of it. So the parents have to be the opt-in for this type of materials. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fountain. Being a school board member, you have to be present at meetings, subcommittee meetings, all that stuff. So let me know, how much time do you think it will take during the week to fulfill your duties as a school board member? And then let me know, how much time are you willing to give if elected as a school board member? We know that being a school board member, you have to be present at meetings, policy committee, whatever committee you're on, you have to be present. So I want to hear from you, how much do you think, how many hours in the week do you think it takes to be an effective school board member? And then let me know, how much time, if elected, do you have on your plate to give to be a school board member? We're going to start with Lenore Ship.
Okay. It has taken a lot. This year's been a very aggressive year. We had a lot on our plate, looking at the superintendent search, and I was on that committee. I'm on policy committee. Of course, I'm attending every committee and board meetings as well. I would say it could be 8 to 10 hours of work a week. It could be more. I think it varies with what the goals are and what we're working towards, what issue we're working with. For example, student outcomes focused government work has been very aggressive. We put a lot of time in with that. So yes, I'm able to do that. I work pretty much full time now for the board. I retired from CMS and thought it would not be a full-time job, but I will say it is a full-time job. I have put in those hours that is needed, but it varies. And so you need to be somewhat flexible and able to say, can I do this? Can I do a call meeting, a committee meeting? We do appeals meetings. This morning was an appeal meeting. So it can vary quite a bit, but I think you have to know it is, if you have one job, this is a second job. It is pretty much a full-time job. And it's a lot to invest in and to do it effectively.
Thank you, Ms. Ship. Dr. Witherspoon.
Yeah, thank you. The last meeting, I think the question was when I was a meeting in September before things kicked off for the campaign, but I am fully aware, as I've heard from Ms. Ship and others on the board, of the time commitment, and I am fully committed to giving the necessary time and even more to ensure that our students are succeeding, and that is my commitment. I'm fully aware, and I'm ready for the task.
Thank you. Thank you. How many hours do you think it'll take during the week?
Me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it could take, like I said, it could take 10, it could take 40. I mean, if you're doing, if you're building community coalitions, if you're doing listening sessions, late nights, and not only that, but it's a commitment with our family as well, and my family's on board with it as well. So it varies, and like Ms. Ship said, and I'm up for the task, whatever.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Fountain, how many hours do you think it takes to be an effective school board member for the week, and how much time are you willing to give?
Well, I've been looking at this, and I figured at the very get-go, once you get on there, you're probably gonna be looking at around 20 hours a week. I mean, this is, and as you learn more and more and more and get more into what's the details of everything that's going on, I think it may be able to draw back a little bit of that. but I'm retired. I fly sometimes and I write sometimes, but I have the time to give to that. And that's, it's like Ms. Shipley was talking about this. If it's a full time, it's fine. I've got the time to do that. And I'm dedicated to doing that because we need help. We need to save our public schools.
Thank you. Shemaya Hayes.
So here's my take on that. I have a full-time career, and I've always had a full-time career. I'm the founder of the Charlotte Community Think Tank. I was a co-chair for the Poor People's Campaign. I have extended myself to this community as if I were a public servant since 2017. Serving on the school board may make me manage to actually give up some of the things that I'm more passionate about outside of a regular full-time job. But I'll tell you, I've been hitting the ground hard for a very long time for education and attending forums and hosting community conversations and all of those things. And so, I know that it'll be a challenge. And it's a task that I thought about very clearly when I signed up for this. I've spoken with Lenore Shipp, I've spoken with Elise Dashew, Stephanie Sneed, any board member who I could ask questions to, and I believe I'm up for the challenge. I think that, like everybody else said, it's a job in which you don't have a set guideline of hours. So I think that you have to really manage your own time. Don't sign up for 8 committees if you don't have time to do 8 committees. Do and commit to the fullest that you can and do the job right. And that's what I intend to do.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a question from the audience. They want to know, do you think, are there, and I don't know if you can answer this question, but are there legal barriers preventing CMS from partnering with local agencies providing superior learning skills like Kumon Learning Center and other resources out there? Are there any legal barriers? And, do you think that could be an option that CMS could pursue? Are there any legal barriers that you know of preventing CMS from partnering with local agencies providing superior learning skills like Kumon Learning Center? Let's go with Dr. Witherspoon.
I could not answer that question at this time as far as any legalities around that. I'm not certain.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Fountain.
Yeah, I don't know about the legalities, but that is one of the things that we need to, as board members and assisting the superintendent, is to find either faith communities, charities, 501(c)(3) type of organizations that could be involved. This is more like a voluntary thing, but I would imagine that there's got to be a way to be able to finance or to fund some of these, services that could help, particularly the tutoring, early reading and et cetera, that's already that we're not already incorporating within the school system now.
Thank you. Shemaya Haynes.
Yes, the school system has a way of incorporating all kinds of partners to do business with the school system. And so that is so there shouldn't be any legalities in terms of that, but there is a process in place that vendors and private people who want to provide services to CMS can go through and do that. I'll put one final plug in for the community schools model. And that is, this model robustly takes in people to provide services as the community sees fit. And there's generally a foundation to support that. But right now, CMS does have something in place.
Thank you. Lenore Shipp.
On mute there. We do. And one of the things when we had our ESSER funds and ARP funds, there's certain guidelines and restrictions there, but we did look at what will it take we actually had tutorial and businesses to apply to support us. And we did that just a couple of years ago. We actually had many vendors or tutorial agencies to apply to support us and to do some after school tutoring, to also do some tutoring during the school day. They've worked with many elementary schools and tutoring for math and in reading. And so we had RFPs done for that. And so we followed the guidelines. Our ESSER expert, Dr. Sinceri, did a great job with that, ensuring that we could bring them on board and how to bring them on board, and working with the state and federal guidelines to ensure that we did it correctly. Now, Kumons, that might be a little different. I know Kumons, my daughter happened to work for Kumons. I think in certain agencies, there may have been some concerns depending on how they filled out the paperwork, what restrictions it could have been there if we're talking about a specific one, and they may have said, well, we didn't get funded. Kumons already runs their own tutorials. They have several in the city. But so I don't know, specific ones, we would have to look at the guidelines and how that works.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Tonight, the African American Clergy Coalition, they are having a forum speaking out against CMS's $2.5 billion bond referendum. They had a press conference last week, and they called the bond referendum unrighteous and unholy. I want to know that where do you stand on CMS's $2.5 billion bond referendum, the largest bond referendum there has been in the state of North Carolina? We're going to start with Mr. Fountain. Where do you stand on CMS's $2.5 billion bond referendum?
Well, the first thing is, if this just gets passed, CMS will have more debt than the entire state of North Carolina. Not only that, but I think it burdens particularly the poor property owners who have just had reassessments of their property values up, and so their tax rates are going to go up. And I think there's a question of the confidence that even if we got to 2.5, that it would be managed properly. And I think there is too much emphasis on the magnet schools at the expense of the neighborhood schools. So I would say no to the $2.5 billion bond.
Okay, thank you. Shemaya Haynes.
I say yes to the bonds. And the reason why is because the county has a statutory and fiduciary responsibility to take care of the 30 schools that are listed in the bond referendum. The difference is going to be how do we pay for that? And so as voters, if we don't vote yes on the referendum, then the county will still have to pay for those schools, but it's going to cost us more as taxpayers in the long run. In terms of accountability, I have sat on the Bond Oversight Committee since 2019, where we review each project and we actually take a look at what's left in what has to be allocated, what projects are moving forward. And so with that, I know that there's accountability for bonds, if nothing else, within the CMS school system. And that's because I get a report every month and I go to a meeting every month and we talk about those things. I think it's important for us to understand that 100 people are moving here every day. And so if we are a couple of years behind on improving our facilities, then that is a long lasting problem that we're creating for ourselves. In addition, most of the items in the bond package are both in District 2 County Commission districts and District 2, where the school board District 2 also. Thank you.
Thank you. Lenore Shipp.
Yes, I definitely support the bonds. We did a lot of work to look at these 30 transformational projects. We had community engagement. We worked with the county commissioners and the county manager. And I think our superintendent did a great job developing the relationship. We worked hard with the county to look at this particular, we know this was a lot of money. We started with 142 projects if we were going to do all that was needed. We went down to 40. Now we're down to about 30, 35. We have a plan and a process for how we will implement the schools. It is well needed. When you're talking about what, 5, 6 years out doing a bond, and we got buildings that are 75 years old, we need to do this. If not now, then when? If not us, then who? We really have to think about that. This is the time to do this. Do we believe in investing in our children? If it's $120 that we're going to pay in taxes in the next about 5 years, when we look at 40 times 3 within the way we'll be looking at our taxes. And, you know, can we do that? Can we live with that? We're all going to be hit by taxes. And the bond referendum for schools is not the only bond that the county will be looking at. So yes, this is a big, big bond and it's a big ask, but it is not even going to do all that we need it to do for our schools. We need our kids to be safe. We need them to have schools that are state of the art.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Witherspoon.
Sure, I support the bonds and because one, if you look, it impacts the schools that are in the Crescent. And if we defer with supply chain issues, with the cost of materials going up, it's only going to compound and it would be more expensive in the long run. As it relates to the progress of projects, you can go online and there's a dashboard where you can see the previous projects and where they are. I think there are 2 that are still in the design phase. And these projects will be on there as well. And you can monitor the progress and see what each stage of each school is. And so I think that's important for the community to know. So yes, I support the bonds.
All right, then. Thank you so much. There's a follow-up question to that. Many of our CMS schools are outdated, not large enough to meet our student enrollment. So what is the alternative to the bond referendum? Lenore Shipp already said that they started with 45 or 180 projects or whatever, and that's still $2.5 billion, still not enough to take care of the needs of the schools. So if the bond referendum fails, what will be your solution to addressing the poor conditions of many of our schools, dealing with mold, asbestos, and things like that, of the schools that are not even going to get touched in this $2.5 billion bond referendum? So what is your solution to address poor conditions of many of our schools, and how will our students who attend these facilities in need be adequately supported in their education? We will start with Shemaya Hayes.
Well, the issue is that our county has a statutory and fiduciary responsibility for the capital improvements of the schools. And just like any other, and this is not just typical to CMS, this is like any other construction related business. It's difficult enough to keep up with growth and the things you need to do just to take care of and maintain. And so to me, our solution is that the county fund capital improvements and needs. CMS is tied to what Raleigh wants us to do statutory, y'all know what I'm trying to say. And so that's our difficulty. And that's the difficulty of being on the board, is that you're tied to what Raleigh wants you to do or needs you to do, or, you know, this is something that the county has to help us with. And either they can do it through a bond referendum or they can do it through other means. But those 30 projects is what we set aside for our needs, and that's what has to be fulfilled. In terms of the other schools, this is why it's so detrimental if this project doesn't go through, because then we're behind on our capital needs. And then the next bond referendum will still probably have around 30 projects. So we're behind in a sense.
Thank
Hope
you.
I answered that.
Lenore Shipp.
Oh, yes. Well, in our annual budget, when we look at our budget, part of our budget looks at F&O or F&E, facilities and operations, facility and equipment. So we do always look at how much funding we will be requesting, what we look at with the county, what we look at through our state funding and our federal funding. We look at preventative maintenance, and that is in the budget because we know that has to happen. When you mention mold, mildew, asbestos, HVAC, you know, all these issues we look at constantly. Work orders come in constantly about this. So we do look at that as part of our budget. Acts from the state and what we do when we get our federal funds in. But we do allocate monies to take care of preventative maintenance. Is it enough? No. We have to align and pick and choose. What can we do this year? What will we look at for the next year and down the line? But we do look at that. But these bonds need to be funded so we don't have so many in preventative maintenance or in maintenance period, and we don't have what we need to get it done in terms of funding. But yes, we do put aside funding in our budget for facilities and operation, F&E, for, you know, equipment.
Thank you. Dr. Witherspoon, what is the alternative to the bond referendum and how can we address the poor conditions in many of our schools right now?
Well, the alternative to the bond referendum is that students will go to schools with that are on well water and not connected to the city line. The alternative is that students will go to school and will be in classrooms that have no natural sunlight. The alternative is that students will go to class with HVAC systems above their head where they can barely hear the teacher. The alternative is that students will be in classrooms with old buildings with obstructions that obstruct their view to the teaching position. The alternative is that students would go to schools with multiple access points with open campuses, California-style campuses, where anybody can roll up on, walk up on to the campus. Those are the alternatives. Meantime, as Ms. Lenore's Ship has said, that there are things that can be done for maintenance, but there's some schools that just have to, you can't renovate them. They have to be built new.
Thank you. Mr. Fountain, since you are against the bond referendum, what's your alternative and what do we need to do to take care of outdated schools right now?
Well, as you probably know, there's about, as of July, there was about $1.3 billion left from the previous bonds that hasn't been expended yet. And the budget, like you're saying, the yearly budget is part of the way to address this, and that the county commissioners are on hook to do these other renovations. So in other words, those things are going to get done. They may not get done in the exact order that the CMS has planned, but they're going to get done because like I said, the county is on board, is obligated to do that. They are the taxing agency. They are able to raise taxes or to take the taxes and to divert them to whatever they think is necessary. And these certain renovations where these poor situations in some of the schools, they will focus that money on those, because otherwise the public would get upset and they will get their pushback from that.
Thank you. Thank you. We're almost at the bottom of the cereal bowl. We have two more questions and we'll be done. Question from the audience. What is the role of the Board of Education in public education, and how do you see your role there? What is the role of the Board of Education in public education, and how do you see your role there? We're going to start with Lenore Ship.
Our role is governance, always, but in public education, I think it's always to be advocating for what we need to ensure that we work on the mission. And our mission is to teach children student outcomes, to provide a quality education for every child in every school. So our role is to advocate, to govern, to understand how we look at how schools operate. We look at our direct reports. We look at how we work together as a board to ensure that the things that we need to see happen and hold in accountability to the superintendent and everyone else involved, how we ensure that we have communities' vision and their values in line with what we do. All of that is part of our governance work, but it's always advocating for public education. And for me, that's all I feel like I've known, because I've always been involved in the work of public education, the work of ensuring every child has a quality education, and we give them the best because they're our futures. And we believe the future of our students is bright. And so we continue to govern in such a way that every child gets the quality education they deserve. And I don't have any more time.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. And you know what? You don't have to use all your time. You don't have to go to. You could, you know,
Well,
you could say it in 60 seconds. Yeah, Dr. Witherspoon, what is the role of the Board of Education in public education, and how do you see your role there?
Under North Carolina state law, Charlotte-Mecklenburg School Board, the Board of Education is in fact the governing body of the school district, and it was responsible for the general control and oversight and enforcement of law within the district. It is also the corporate policy making body for the district, and those are responsibilities. And then, as an individual board member, you work collaboratively and reach resolve and decisions through consensus with the other board members.
Thank you, thank you. Mr. Fountain, Bill Fountain.
Okay, the role of the school board member is to take the vision and the values of your constituents and translate those into goals and guardrails of the school district. And then from those, you hold the superintendent accountable to achieving those goals and guardrails and managing within those. And like Monty was mentioning, there is the collaborative body, and those together, that's what the focus is to, again, but is to taking those, the vision and values of the community, of your constituents, and translating those into goals and to guardrails, and then holding the superintendent accountable to achieving those. Thank you.
Thank you. Shemaiah Haynes.
So the school board has a few responsibilities. They approve the budget. They're responsible for student assignment. They're responsible for the legislative agenda, or establishing the legislative agenda. And of course, we attend meetings, and we have some judicial responsibilities as well. For my part, what I hope to do is to continue building with the community, providing sound judgment, effective leadership, and informed decision-making to bring a dramatic shift from where we are now to a better place for our children.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. So someone sent me a question. So we have two questions. So listen, so we can get this done if you could answer this next question in 60 seconds or less. How about that? That'll be the challenge for the school board candidates. Can you answer this question in 60 seconds or less? It has always been challenging for young people being held in detention to have their educational needs met. As a school board member, what will you do to ensure that their educational needs are met being held in detention? Let's start with Dr. Witherspoon.
And you say detention meaning?
In jail.
Yes. Okay. Well, you know, that's a huge problem, and it disproportionately impacts my community. And although we have a lot of success stories, and many that I know, we have to do a much better job. And I think we have to start even before we get to prison or to jail, starting with a strong pre-K. Following our students more closely, but also we have to find ways in which, and I'm talking about from a community perspective, to provide resources and to ensure that our students, that people that are in prison of our community, that they get the educational resources they need, so that when they leave, they don't return back to prison. And also to be able to provide opportunities for folks once they are released. But by that, I mean jobs, stable housing, and other resources that they may need.
Thank you. Mr. Fountain.
Yeah, and the way I'm looking at detention, I'm presuming you're talking more about the suspension out of the school. And in this regard, one of the focuses is you got to be able to make and this is where you get sometimes community activists that are involved in this, or you get your faith community or some of these 503(c)(4)s people to help the student maintain the classroom pace. In other words, so they're not missing out on whatever you're talking about, whether it's in Math 1 or in reading, that they stay in line with that. And if these same people who are helping to coach these children back to changing their behavior to be able to get back into the school as quick as they can, because I think that's going to be a very important thing. And it's going to take a lot of work, but it's just something that's nourishing, and it can really have big payoff.
Yeah. And I guess the question is, it has always been challenging for young people being held in detention to have their educational needs met. And with the young people no longer being held in Mecklenburg County, how will you ensure that their educational needs are being met? Since I guess they closed Jail North. So want to make sure about that. Shemaya Haynes.
Well, this is a place where I'm not going to try to make up answers or do a stump speech about what I think I should do or what's happening. This is very complicated. And what I'd have to do is really take a deep look in terms of how children, first of all, how children get put into this cycle. And then secondly, who are we talking about, and how exactly can we as a school board in Mecklenburg County support children once they've left the county? And also, do we still have jurisdiction to educate them once they leave our county? I can speak about Turning Point and what I think should happen there, because that's actually a place where students are taken out of their normal classrooms and neighborhoods for not detention necessarily, but you know what I mean. Turning Point has had a lot of issues. I think there are issues in terms of the culture there and lots of systemic changes that have to take place that take more than a minute. I'm not going to take up everybody else's time to say I would have to investigate further to identify a solution.
Thank you. And Lenore Shipp, can you answer that question in 60 seconds or less?
Right. I think we would have to look at outreach. If they're outside of Mecklenburg County, what is outreach? What can we do? What is our obligation in terms of educating them? Because sometimes when our students are even expelled, we make a decision whether we will provide alternative services or not, depending on what the offense may have been. So I think that's a reach that we may not have a area right now where we can say, what is our reach? What is it that CMS can do if they're outside of Mecklenburg County, outside of our school district? And so that would be something we have to continue to look into. What reach do we have? What can we do? When we think about the judicial system, when we think about our social workers, when we think about partnerships we might have with the judicial system, with those who work to ensure that children get their needs or young people get their needs met, where's the reach? I'm not sure that there is a line for us outside of, if they're no longer in Mecklenburg County, if they're no longer in our school district.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you. The last question, you can answer this in a minute or less so we can end Almost on time. The last question, the school board is responsible for hiring and firing the superintendent. I want you to tell me your grade of the current superintendent, Dr. Crystal Hill, and tell me if anything, what she needs to improve upon. The role of the school board is to hire, fire, and evaluate the superintendent. I want you to know, if it's a school board member, let me know how good of a job is she doing now, and what does she need to improve upon. We will start with Mr. Fountain.
Yes, a grade. Let me think here. I'm going to give her a B-, and I think she really, kicked the ball off right by emphasizing the high expectations. And I think that is a very important thing to do. And what like you mentioned, she started tackling this thing about the disorderly stuff that's going on in the football games, or those things like that. The other thing I would hope that she would follow up on is hold the same consistency and high expectations with the respecting the code of student conduct throughout all the schools, with all the principals being wholly consistent, where we can have some productive and safe classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Shamaya Haynes, what grade would you give the superintendent? What does she need to improve upon?
Well, I'm not elected to be her. I'm not elected yet, so I don't feel comfortable giving my estimation as a community member, because I'm not privy to what the current board is privy to. However, I give her an A for effort. She came into a tremendous amount of stuff that she had to improve upon. And I think we have to give her the opportunity to continue what she started, which is excellence without exceptions. And I also think that in general, and CMS is a very large school system, and there are a lot of systemic things that she's trying to take care of and support. So I give her an A for effort, and I'll refrain from speaking about her from just strictly from a community perspective, because I'm not in the role as of yet, and I'm not going to get a hold of voters, but I hope they vote for me.
All right, then. Lenore Shipp, what grade do you give the superintendent? What does she need to improve upon?
Right. We're still working on that grade. She had a 90-day plan. We've seen the 30-day. We just looked at the 60-day. We've seen what she completed, what's still in process, and what has been fully completed. So I'm still looking at what that grade is going to be, because I am wanting to see it all the way through her first 90 days. So I don't think it's fair for me to give a grade and she hasn't finished her first 90 days, which is what we've held her to put in a plan for the first 90 days for us to effectively evaluate that, which we've just finished the 60-day look. And I think she is on track. I think she is doing a good job so far, but I'm not ready to give that letter grade yet, because I feel like I need to do what we've said we would do, is give her the first 90 days to evaluate her at the end of those 90 days, which she has not gotten there yet. But I am pleased with what I'm seeing so far. I feel like the high expectations really being on target with what we need when it comes to our teachers, our staff, bringing in a cabinet in areas where we needed to strengthen. I see the process, and and it's looking good. But again, I will not give a grade yet, because I want to see the rest of this.
All right, we'll check back with you in the next 30 days.
That's right.
Okay. Dr. Witherspoon, what grade do you give the superintendent? What do you think she needs to improve upon?
Listen, I'll say this. She's done a tremendous job of listening to the community. She's made her rounds in the community. She's familiarizing herself with the various parts of our community. Here's what I would do as a board member. I will work to ensure with my other board members that she has every available resource, both that functional and whatever we have to create to ensure that she has everything that she needs to leverage in order to improve student outcomes in CMS. And that's what my focus will be.
Thank you, Dr. Witherspoon. Thank you, candidates, for hanging in there for this robust conversation. We will now begin our 90-second closing statement, and we will begin with Dr. Witherspoon. Your 90 seconds starts now.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Monty Witherspoon, and I am a candidate for Charlotte-Mecklenburg School Board at large. I'm asking for your support on November the 7th. As I said earlier in my beginning statement, I am a native of Charlotte. I'm a product of Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, Still Creek, Kennedy, 1998 graduate of Olympic High School. I am a parent of a kindergartner, and that is the lens through which I will approach this role, and by being student-centered in all of my decisions. I will support teachers and make sure that they have all the resources that they need. I also want to focus on building strong community coalitions. It takes more than CMS to turn this ship around. I also will fight for safe learning environments for all of our students, so our kids and our teachers and our staff can go into a safe and secure environment. And finally, also system-wide accountability. I understand firsthand where many of these students are. We talk about the school to prison pipeline. I was in it. I failed third and seventh grade. And today I have an earned doctorate. So I bring a unique perspective to the board that I think will help us move forward and turn around CMS. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Witherspoon. Lenora Shipp.
I have been from the classroom to the boardroom. I have been boots on the ground in the schools. I believe experience counts. I have a record of performance closing the gap and raising the bar for student achievement as a principal, a proven leader in the schools. Now with 4 years on the school board, a member at large, I have learned governance, working with the board and others to bring consensus. And I am uniquely qualified to do this work in this system where I grew up as a student, graduated, a teacher. I know the work. And I believe now we need an urgency of continuous improvement. We need someone who can bring consistency, stability, and sustainability to the work. I believe I do that. But the most rewarding thing has been being a parent and putting my child all the way through CMS, the challenges of educating a student, my child. And I know the work. And today my daughter is a graduate of medical school. She's a doctor of medicine. So I know what we're capable of in CMS. I want to continue to be here to do that work for every child, to leave no child behind. I am asking for everyone's support. It takes a village, it takes the tribe. And I want to continue to see us come together to educate every child to the best of their potential and to have a bright future.
Thank you. Shemaya Haynes.
Okay, I've been in Charlotte since 2012, and in 2015 or 16, I got involved in education. Since 2017, I have worked really tirelessly to improve CMS and the trajectory for our children. I think it's a mishap for someone to try to get on the school board and let that be their first place of advocacy for children. I have a proven track record in what I've done. I care about children. I'm compassionate to all people. Yet that is not why I seek election. I seek to be elected to provide solutions that I've highlighted and outlined. You can see more about my platform at shemaye.com. And here's what I want to conclude with. When you are in a position of power, you have to be educated and informed about what it looks like to be on the ground first. Be as knowledgeable as you can in terms of what it is you're seeking. I have done that. I have supported other school board members. I've supported my community. I've built coalitions, and I'll be right here together with you. And so I need your support to continue my advocacy, to finish what I've started, and to establish community schools, put in restorative justice practices, bring more arts enrichment equitably. And I thank you. Please give me the support on November 7th. Shemaye Haynes.
Thank you. Mr. Fountain.
Thank you. I'm Bill Fountain, running for the school board. I have proven leadership as an Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, combat fighter pilot, and defense planner. I've got demonstrated teamwork and managerial expertise as a program and marketing manager in a Fortune 101 company. And I am a licensed and experienced middle and high school teacher in North Carolina. I know firsthand the challenges of teaching, of the school administration, and parental concerns for the safety of our children. And for the past 15 years, I've been focused on helping children as a teacher, volunteer pilot, and speaking at the CMS School Board. I'm ready to help our schools, to save our public schools. And part of that is a 4-point approach of solutions: hold CMS leadership accountable for student performance and transparency, invigorate the student teacher parent relationship to include parental rights and values, created an environment that values the classical education, the child development process, and age-appropriate learning materials. And finally, is to support and to respect the code of student conduct for safe and productive classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you, candidates, for this robust discussion. I'm going to now turn it over to the first Vice President of the African American Caucus of Mecklenburg County, S.Y. Mason Watson. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Dedrick, and thank you, candidates, Bill Fountain, Lenora Shipp, Shemaye Haynes, and Dr. Monty Witherspoon. We are so happy that you joined us this evening and provided your answers to our listening audience. We have a few announcements before we end the evening. First and foremost, our members will receive an email later this evening with information about our endorsement process. We will notify all candidates who sought our endorsement via email after our process has completed. You should look for something no earlier than Tuesday of next week. Second, our information going to our membership will also include an opportunity to weigh in on whether our caucus should endorse the bond referendum. So stay tuned, members, for that. For members and guests this evening, we are happy to announce our partnership with a number of organizations here in Mecklenburg County. We are partnering to host a meetup on the East Side. The flyer for this event, it has been dropped in the chat. We encourage everyone to join us, please, for this event. It's a first of a kind, and we're looking forward to welcoming families of all ages to Cedarwood Neighborhood Park on October 22nd, Sunday, October 22nd, from 2 until 5 p.m. Finally, I would be remiss if I did not put in a shameless plug for membership to the African American Caucus. Our palm card has also been posted in the chat. We welcome you to join us in our efforts. We are education advocates, which is why we found it so important to include a candidate forum this year to hear what our members are concerned about, to hear our candidates' responses, and to have conversation in our communities after this forum and in the days coming up, leading up to election. One last announcement, please don't forget that Friday, October 13th, is the last day to register before the November election. Please make sure that everyone in your households who are 18 and older are registered to vote. We can't tell you how to vote, but we can certainly encourage you to register to vote and to go to the polls and exercise your civic responsibility. So thank you very much. We wish you all a good evening. We are going to close this evening with a Thank you. And with a little music.
While we're waiting for everybody to disperse, Edric, can I just say that,
We're
and
supposed to leave.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Just one moment, please.
okay. I just want to commend Edric because he does so well.
We supposed to
Questions?
leave.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Just one moment, please.
Oh,
Leave.
good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good
Night.
night.
Thank
Good night.
you so much.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Are the judges, are the rookies gonna make us kick
Just
them
one
out?
moment, please. Just one
Yeah,
moment,
one moment.
please.
Yeah, we're still live.
Just one moment, please.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying, are the rookies?
Just one moment, please. Sean, can you confirm that we've stopped,
talk now,
please?
why?
Sean, can you confirm that we have closed
No,
out everything?
No,
It
we're
still
still
says
recording.
Okay.
Recording, and we're still live on YouTube.
Okay, thank you. Hold on.